Guitar tips, well, just the tips, just for you, guitar tips. Hello and welcome to Guitar Tips. My name is Adam Levy, and this is my weekly video blog series. I post a brand new guitar tip right here each and every Friday. And of course, this week is no exception. We've got a guitar tip just for you. I can't wait till there's like 3D, and then I can really just get right through the screen and be like, "Oh, guitar tip just for me in the face! Whoa, what's happening?" Anyway, this week's guitar tip is don't get stuck in one key. That's right, don't get stuck in one key. And in this tip was inspired by a note that I got from a guitar tip viewer. His name is Anthony Ziomek. Hope I'm saying that right. It's Z-I-O-M-E-K. Ziomek, I think. Anyway, Anthony writes, my problem lately has been thinking too diatonically. I come up with cool ways to add notes within a key, but then always drift back to that key center. Like, for example, in the key of A major, I might add an F major 7 and resolve it to E dominant 7, but that seems to always feel like I'm in the same key center. So, do you know that feeling? Those of you watching this, besides Anthony? I think I know that feeling, and it can be frustrating if you want to write some music that has a real harmonic color to it and you feel boxed in by the just sort of traditional chords. If we're in the key of A, it would be common to play A, D, E, or E7. And A, you might have an F sharp minor, but you wouldn't have F major 7, which is a nice chord that Anthony's talking about, in the key of A, and then back to E7. So where does that, first of all, where does that F major 7 fit into the key of A? It doesn't really. It's got an F natural in it, which doesn't really belong in the key of A. Key of A normally would have an F sharp in it. And it's also, the F major 7 also has a C natural in it. Again, that's outside of the A major scale. Should have a C sharp. So this chord has two notes that are outside of the key, and then of course it has an A, which is in the key, and that's fine, and E, which is also in the key. So where does that come from? There's different ways to look at it, I suppose, but I think of that as something that we're borrowing from the key of A minor, which you can think of as the parallel minor key. That means parallel minor is not the same thing as relative minor. To be clear, parallel minor is the minor key that uses the same root. So A minor, A major, those are parallel keys. Not to be confused with the relative minor key of A major, which is F sharp minor. And that would open up some other chords that we could get to. For example, we could have a C sharp 7 chord, that's the 5 chord in C sharp. C sharp 7 is the 5 chord in F sharp minor. And that would give us the color of being able to use C sharp dominant 7 in the key of A, especially if it's going to the F sharp minor chord. One other thing I should clarify, there's a lot of footnotes here in this one. For the purposes of this tip, when we're in a minor key, we'll say that the 1 is minor, the 4 is minor, and the 5 is dominant. Okay. There's different types of minor scales and different ways to harmonize them, but we'll just keep it real simple, and that's what we're talking about. So when I say we're in the key of A major, we go to the relative minor key, that's F sharp minor. The 5 chord there is C sharp 7. So that, if we borrow that for just a transition, it could go to F sharp minor or it could go to D. That's kind of nice. Then we could go to D minor, or just, that was D minor 6, but you could play D minor. D minor is the 4 chord from A minor, so we've borrowed that. So we went A, C sharp 7, which we borrowed from F sharp minor, to D, that's in the key of A, and then D minor, which we borrowed from A minor, the parallel minor key. And then we can go back home, and then we use Anthony's turnaround. Okay. So that really still, it gives us some color in the key of A, but it doesn't really answer the question of how do we leave the key, how do we go farther? And this assumes that you're writing your own music. It could be songs, could be just instrumental compositions, whatever. And so how do we stretch that out? Well, there's a couple of ways to go outside the key that I can think of off the top of my head. One is to use this chord, say, this will be a harmonic way to leave the key, is to repurpose a chord from the key. So we're in A, now let's go to D. But now instead of thinking of D as the 4 chord in A, let's think of it as the 5 chord in G. So our ear is happy enough to go from A to D. That's just 1 to 4. But now we're going to switch the way we think about it and call this the 5 chord. And now we're going to go to G and use some stuff from G. So back to home. And then I've gone back home. I did that off the top of my head, so I can't analyze it too perfectly, but I basically used D to get to G, played some stuff in G, and then, C is part of G, and C can get us to A minor, and now we're in A minor, and then now we're back home to A major. So that's a way that you could use a chord that is in the original key and just repurpose it. Remember, any major triad belongs in 3 different keys. D is in the key of A, it's the 4 chord. It's the 1 chord in the key of D, and it's the 5 chord in the key of G. So it's really a sort of a roundabout, and depending on which stop or which road you take off of that roundabout, you're going to be in a new key. Same with the minor chords. If we're in A, we have an F sharp minor. That's the 6th chord in F sharp. It's the 6th chord in A major, but it also belongs in other major keys. It's the 2 chord in the key of E, right? And it's the 3 chord in the key of D. So if I've used that chord to put us in the key of D, now this is 4, 5, 1, and D. So do you see what I'm doing? I hope so. I hope that's clear. So that's a way to escape the one key trap, is to use simple major and minor chords as kind of not double agents, but triple agents. They have allegiance. Each chord, each major or minor chord has ties to other keys than the one that you started in. 2 other keys besides the key that you're in. So that's a way. Another way to think about it is just to reharmonize a melody note from the key. So I'll just play a little passage in A. So when I get to this note, you could say I'm in A, but do, re, mi, fa, so. that note E could be part of so many different chords. It could be part of a C chord, which is not in the key of A. It could be part of an F major 7 chord, as you said, not in the key of A. It could be, so many things. Could be part of C sharp minor. And I'm just, at this point, letting it be sort of, a fundamental note. It could be more fancy. It could be the 9 of D minor 9, right? Or, the 11 on a B7 chord, B9 sus, or B11. There's just almost an infinite number of ways to just harmonize them. Right? So, any melody note, think of all the different ways you could harmonize it. And once you play a chord that's outside of the key of A to harmonize a note that is in the key of A, you've now kind of recalibrated the atmosphere of the tune, and you can, let's say we went to that D minor 9, that could be leading us to C, or somewhere else entirely, but just that melody note is a pivot point to get us somewhere else. So these are just simple concepts, but you could expand them infinitely. I mean, this is really what composers and songwriters do. They use borrowed chords from parallel keys and relative keys. They use repurposing a diatonic chord to move into another key that shares that chord in common. And they use melody notes as pivot points, taking a note that's familiar to our ears because we've been hearing it in the key we were in, but it's also common to now the key that we want to go to. So those are really the tricks. And then beyond that, I would just say do it a lot. Try and write as much music as you can, and see how many different ways you can explore this as you write. And then, as always, listen to a lot of music that does this sort of thing. I have put together a Spotify playlist of some things that I like that have modulations in them. It's everything from the Beatles to Chopin to John Coltrane to David Bowie. The more you listen to how the great writers have done this, I think it will hopefully, and listen to it to try and just get it into your subconscious, but also try and transcribe some of it. Take all this. I think this playlist I've created, which you'll see in the link down below. There's, I think, about a dozen songs in there, and they all use modulation tricks in different ways. Whichever ones you find most intriguing, go ahead and analyze them. Transcribe what the melody is and what the harmony is, and see how it's done. And hopefully that will help demystify it a little bit and inspire you to go in some new directions. So Anthony Ziomek, thank you for your question. I think that was a good thing to explore. I want to mention Guitar Tips is sponsored by Martin Guitar Strings. So thank you for making all of my guitars sound even better. This is a set of Martin Retro Series strings in a light gauge, and I really like them. They're beautiful strings. Thank you, Martin Guitar Strings. Also, I'm going to mention one more time, Alfred Publishing is offering a special offer on my book, Play the Right Stuff. I say book, it's really a digital download of the material from the book that I wrote called Play the Right Stuff. So to be clear, you don't have to go out to the mailbox and wait for a package to come. It's a digital delivery, but they're offering, in any case, a discount If you go to the link down below and the Play the Right Stuff link and enter the code TIPS, TIPS at checkout, you get a 20% discount. So that's pretty cool. Hope you'll check it out. And that's about it for this week. For Guitar Tips, I'm Adam Levy. Stay tuned and take good care.